Hello and welcome to English Plus Podcast for one more journey together this week. I'm your host Danny, and this is the fourth episode in our series Literature and Us. Now, we started the series by asking why stories still matter in our hyper-modern AI-driven world. We then pulled back the curtain to look at the universal building blocks of storytelling, and we built a toolkit of language to talk about our reading experiences more confidently. Today, we're going to put all of that into practice as we embark on our most ambitious adventure yet. We are going on a journey through world literature. Now, it's so easy for our reading lives to become a bit, local. We tend to read stories from our own country, or from cultures very similar to our own. For many of us listening in English, that often means a steady diet of British and American authors. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. There are masterpieces in every tradition. But staying in your own literary neighborhood is like living in a beautiful town and never ever traveling. Now, you miss out on the breathtaking diversity of the world. You miss the chance to see how other people live, love, struggle, and dream. So today, we're going to be literary tourists. We're going to take a whirlwind tour across continents and centuries, stopping to sample a few of the incredible stories our global humanity has produced. Now, this won't be a comprehensive lecture, of course not. It's just a tasting menu. It's an invitation. The goal is to discover two profound and seemingly contradictory truths at the same time. First, that the fundamental desires, fears, and questions that animate our lives are strikingly universal. And second, that the cultural lenses through which we view these experiences are endlessly, beautifully, and fascinatingly different. This is our global mosaic, my friends. Each piece is unique, but together, they form a stunning picture of what it means to be human. So pack your bags, open your mind, and let's begin our journey. Our first stop, the vast and varied continent of Asia. I'm Danny, and this is a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Our journey begins in Asia, a continent of ancient civilizations and dizzying modern change. The literature here is deeply steeped in millennia of philosophy, tradition, and history, while also grappling with the chaotic forces of the 20th and 21st centuries. A common thread you'll find is a profound exploration of the tension between fate and free will, the individual and the collective, and the old ways versus the new. Our first stop is Japan, a culture with a deep aesthetic sensibility. If we travel back 1,000 years to the 11th century, we find a woman named Murasaki Shikibu, a lady-in-waiting at the imperial court, writing what is often called the world's first novel, The Tale of Genji. It's a sprawling, psychologically rich story about the life and loves of a brilliant and impossibly handsome prince, Hikaru Genji. On the surface, it's a tale of courtly intrigue and romance. We see Genji's passions, his political maneuvering, his moments of joy, and his deep sorrows. This is the universal part. A human heart's yearning for connection, the pain of loss, the fleeting nature of happiness. But the cultural nuance, the thing that makes it so distinctly Japanese, is the mood that permeates the entire novel. It's a concept known as mono no uere, which can be translated into the pathos of things, or a gentle sadness for the transience of life. Lady Murasaki doesn't just tell us that a cherry blossom is beautiful. She makes us feel the exquisite, poignant beauty of that blossom because we know it will soon fall. The characters are constantly aware of the passage of time, the inevitability of change, and the impermanence of all things. It's a worldview that finds beauty not in spite of sadness, but within it. And now let's fast forward 1,000 years to modern Japan and encounter an author who has captivated the world, Haruki Murakami. In novels like Kafka on the Shore or Norwegian Wood, the ancient court has been replaced by the bustling, alienating landscape of modern Tokyo. His characters are often lonely, drifting young people who listen to Western jazz and pop music, read classical novels, and find themselves slipping into surreal, dreamlike worlds that exist just beneath the surface of our own. The universal themes in Murakami's work are the search for identity and the profound ache of loneliness in the modern world. His characters are all looking for a connection that has been lost, a missing piece of themselves. The cultural nuance is the specific context of a highly ordered, conformist Japanese society where the pressure to fit in is immense. Murakami's surrealism, his talking cats and fish falling from the sky, can be seen as a way of breaking free from that rigidity, an escape into a world where the logic of the heart matters more than the logic of society. From the gentle melancholy of the ancient court to the surreal loneliness of the modern city, we see a culture wrestling with the same core human needs a millennium apart. So, that was our first stop, Japan. From Japan, we traveled to China, a civilization whose literary tradition is one of the oldest in the world. We could spend a lifetime exploring the great classical novels like the epic adventure Journey to the West with its beloved Monkey King. It's a rollicking story that is also a deep allegory for the quest for spiritual enlightenment, blending Buddhist and Taoist philosophy. It shows how a story can be both a thrilling adventure and a profound philosophical text. But to truly understand the resilience of the human spirit, let's look at a modern masterpiece. Yu Hua's 1993 novel, To Live. It is one of the most powerful and devastating books I've ever read. The novel tells the story of a man named Fugui, following him through the tumultuous history of 20th century China. He starts as the spoiled, gambling son of a landlord, loses his family fortune, and is then swept up in the immense historical currents of the Chinese Civil War, Mao's Great Leap Forward, and the Cultural Revolution. The plot is a relentless series of tragedies. Fugui loses everything, again and again. His family, his friends, his health, they are all stripped away by famine, political persecution, and sheer bad luck. A summary of the plot would sound like the bleakest story imaginable. But the book is not about suffering, it's about enduring. The universal theme is the simple, stubborn, almost absurd human instinct to keep going, to find a reason to live even when life offers nothing but pain. Fugui, by the end of his life, is left with only an old ox for a companion. But he has not been broken. He has a quiet dignity and a profound appreciation for the simple act of being alive. The cultural nuance is, of course, the raw, unflinching depiction of this specific period of Chinese history, a trauma that affected hundreds of millions of people. The novel gives a human face to historical events that can seem abstract and distant. It reminds us that history is not just dates and movements. It is the accumulated story of individual lives. To Live is a testament to the idea that literature can bear witness to the worst of human history while still celebrating the uncrushable strength of the human heart. So that was about Asia. Now I will have to say that, of course, if I want to explore the literature of Asia, I need hundreds, maybe thousands of episodes just to talk about this rich history, this rich literary tradition, and not only in Japan and China, but in a lot of other countries. But as I told you, I'm just a tour guide and we have limited time, so I have limited places, or limited literature actually, that I can show you in one episode. I hope that I'm just opening the door for you to explore on your own, just to whet your appetite for literature that is not exactly your own literature. Open up your eyes to the world and see that there are other people there that might be different from us, but in a way, at their core, fundamentally, we are all the same. But now let's move on to part 2, Latin America. Let's talk about magic, reality, and revolution. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now let's pack our literary bags and cross the Pacific to Latin America. A continent of vibrant cultures, passionate politics, and a literary style that has enchanted the world. The stories here are often shaped by a turbulent history of colonialism, revolution, and political instability. And they have found a unique way to talk about it. This brings us to the famous literary style known as Magical Realism. It's a term that can seem confusing, but the idea is simple. It is not fantasy, where you escape to a separate magical world like Narnia. Instead, Magical Realism treats supernatural, mythical, or magical events as a perfectly normal, accepted part of everyday reality. Ghosts mingle with the living. A young woman ascends to heaven while folding laundry. And nobody in the story finds this particularly strange. This isn't just a quirky stylistic choice. For many Latin American writers, it was the only way to accurately capture the often surreal, unbelievable, and contradictory nature of life and history on their continent. Now, our first stop is in Colombia. There's no better guide to this world than the master himself, Gabriel García Márquez. His 1967 masterpiece, 100 Years of Solitude, is perhaps the most famous example of magical realism. It tells the story of 7 generations of the Buendía family in the mythical, isolated town of Macondo, which they founded. The novel is a sprawling, dizzying family saga. We follow the Buendías through births and deaths, loves and betrayals, civil wars, and a banana plantation massacre. The universal themes are epic. The cyclical nature of time and history, the inescapable power of family legacy, the corrosive effects of solitude, and the human search for love and connection in a world that often seems destined for ruin. The cultural nuance is the magical realist lens through which this story is told. In Macondo history, myth and dreams are all woven together. An insomnia plague sweeps through the town, causing everyone to lose their memory, forcing them to label everything. This is a cow. She must be milked every morning. The ghost of a family patriarch remains a constant, grumbling presence in the house. These fantastical events are presented with a deadpan, matter-of-fact tone. García Márquez uses this style to show how, in a continent where history can feel like a repeating, inescapable nightmare, the line between the real and the fantastic can blur. The magic is a way of talking about a reality that is itself too strange for conventional realism. From Colombia, we journey south to Chile to the work of Isabel Allende. Her magnificent debut novel, The House of the Spirits, is often compared to García Márquez's work, and it does share that magical realist quality. But Allende brings a powerful feminist perspective to the family saga. The novel follows 3 generations of the Trueba family, focusing on its clairvoyant and strong-willed women. The story is a microcosm of the turbulent history of Chile in the 20th century. We see the social struggles, the political idealism, and the horrifying rise of a military dictatorship that is clearly meant to represent that of Augusto Pinochet. The universal themes are here in spades: passionate love, brutal family conflict, the fight for justice, and the power of memory to resist oppression. We see characters fighting for their beliefs, loving fiercely, and enduring unimaginable loss. The cultural nuance is its specific grounding in Chilean history and its focus on the female experience. The story is told through the voices of its women. They are the keepers of the family history, the sources of strength, and the moral center of the novel. Now, while the men are often consumed by politics, pride, and violence, the women are the ones who endure, who remember, and who ultimately ensure that the family's story survives. It is a book that shows how the grand, sweeping narrative of a nation's history is ultimately built on the foundation of personal, domestic, and often female lives. So, my friends, that was our journey to Latin America. Next, we're going to visit Africa. But again, I have to reiterate that this is just a very quick tour. And by the way, I've already created a series that's called The Story of Literature, and in each episode I focus on one part of the world a little more than I'm doing right now. So if you would like to listen to that, you can listen to it on the podcast, of course. I started publishing the episodes yesterday, And by Sunday, I will have published the last episode of the series. There are 10 episodes there. Of course, there are a lot more details than what I'm talking about here, but still, even that is just an introduction. You really need to get your hands dirty, to read the books yourselves, to feel the power, to feel those themes, to really understand the nuances of this culture from the books themselves, not just from what I say. But anyway, I'm just a tour guide, and I'm taking you next to Africa, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now we cross the Atlantic to the vast continent of Africa, home to thousands of cultures and languages, and a literary tradition that is both ancient and profoundly modern. Much of African literature is shaped by two powerful forces: the deep roots of oral storytelling and the complex, painful legacy of European colonialism. Before we dive in, it's important to remember the oral tradition. For centuries, in many African societies, stories were not primarily written. They were performed. They were spoken, sung, and chanted by a griot, or storyteller. This tradition emphasizes rhythm, repetition, proverbs, and a direct connection with the audience. This vibrant oral heritage deeply influences the style of many of Africa's greatest written works. We cannot talk about modern African literature without starting in Nigeria with Chinua Achebe and his groundbreaking 1958 novel, Things Fall Apart. This book is a landmark. For centuries, the story of Africa had been told by Europeans, often depicting it as a dark continent without history or culture. Achebe's novel was a powerful act of writing back, of reclaiming the narrative and telling the story of colonialism from an African perspective. The novel introduces us to Okonkwo, a fierce and respected warrior in a vibrant, complex Igbo society in the late 19th century. The first part of the book does something revolutionary. It simply shows us this world before the white man arrives. We see its traditions, its religious beliefs, its system of justice, its art, and its intricate social structures. We see a functioning, dignified society full of rich human drama. The universal theme is that of a classic tragedy. Okonkwo is a great man whose own pride and fear of weakness, his tragic flaw, contribute to his eventual downfall. It's a story about a man at odds with his world, a theme we see in Greek tragedies and Shakespearean plays. The profound cultural nuance and the book's political power comes in the second half, when the white Christian missionaries and colonial administrators arrive. They do not see the complexity of Igbo society. They see only savagery and ignorance. Achebe masterfully shows how this clash of cultures leads to a slow, inexorable unraveling. The title comes from a W.B. Yeats poem, Things Fall Apart, the Center Cannot Hold. It is the story of a world being fractured, its center destroyed by an outside force that refuses to understand it. The book gives its readers a visceral sense of what was lost during the colonial encounter. That was our first stop in Nigeria. I highly recommend you read this book if you haven't already. But next, let's move on to Senegal. From Nigeria, we travel to Senegal to hear very different but equally powerful voice. Mariama Ba's 1981 novel, So Long a Letter, is a short, beautiful, and incisive book with a huge emotional impact. The entire novel is written as a long letter from Ramatoulaye, a recently widowed schoolteacher, to her lifelong friend, Aissatu. As she waits through the traditional 40-day mourning period, Ramatoulaye reflects on her life, her marriage, and the choices she and her friend have made. The central event of her life was the moment her husband of 25 years decided to take a second, much younger wife, a practice allowed in their Islamic culture. The universal themes are the pain of betrayal, the enduring power of female friendship, and the search for dignity in the face of heartbreak. Any person, anywhere in the world, who has felt the sting of a loved one's infidelity will recognize Ramatoulaye's grief and anger. The cultural nuance is how this universal experience is shaped by her specific Senegalese, Muslim, post-colonial world. The novel is a gentle but firm critique of patriarchy as it exists within her culture. It explores the tension between tradition and a woman's desire for personal freedom and respect. Ramatulai and her friend Aisatu represent two different responses to this dilemma. One chooses to stay within the marriage for the sake of her children and social stability, while the other chooses divorce and independence. The book doesn't offer easy answers, but it presents a moving and intimate portrait of women navigating a world of immense change, holding on to their faith and their friendship as anchors. So, that was our quick tour to African literature, my friends. And next, we're going to take a glimpse of the Middle East and Europe. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Our journey is nearing its end, but we have a few more essential stops. We turn now to the literature of the Middle East, the cradle of so many of our oldest stories, and a quick glance back at Europe, whose traditions have been in dialogue and often in conflict with the rest of the world. In Iran, we can look to the ancient tradition of Persian poetry, and particularly to the 13th century poet Rumi. His mystical poems about love and spiritual yearning have become global bestsellers translated into dozens of languages. Now, why does a 13th century Sufi mystic resonate so deeply with 21st century readers? Because his theme is perhaps the most universal of all: the soul's passionate, desperate search for union with the divine, which he expresses through the metaphor of romantic love. The nuance is its deep rooting in Islamic Sufism, but the universal cry for connection transcends any single creed. In Egypt, we can meet Najib Mahfouz, the first Arabic language writer to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. His masterpiece, the Cairo Trilogy, is a sweeping family saga much like those we've seen in other cultures. It follows a Cairo family across 3 generations, from the First World War to the Second, capturing the immense social, political, and religious shifts in 20th century Egypt. We see the universal conflicts between fathers and sons, the struggle for women's rights, and the search for meaning in a changing world, all played out against the vibrant, chaotic, and unforgettable backdrop of the city of Cairo. In a journey of world literature, it is crucial to see Europe not as the default center, but as one vital part of the global conversation. We can see how the existential dread of a Czech writer like Franz Kafka, or the deep psychological and moral questions of a Russian author like Fyodor Dostoevsky have influenced writers across the world, from Japan to South Africa. Their exploration of alienation, bureaucracy, guilt, and redemption have become part of a global literary language. Well, my friends, our journey has taken us from the imperial court of ancient Japan to a mythical town in Colombia, from a vibrant Igbo village in Nigeria to the bustling street of modern Cairo. And what have we found? We have found that stories are the common language of our species. We saw the epic family saga, a vessel for national history, in the work of García Márquez in Colombia, Allende in Chile, and Mahfouz in Egypt. We saw the profound resilience of the human spirit in the face of historical trauma in Yu Hua's China and Chinua Achebe's Nigeria. We saw the timeless search for love, connection, and meaning in the poetry of Rumi and the novels of Murakami. Each story was a unique tile, colored by the specific pigments of its culture, its history, and its language. The Japanese concept of mono no uere, the Latin American style of magical realism, the rhythms of the African oral tradition, these are not interchangeable. They are precious, unique ways of seeing the world. But when we step back, we see that these unique tiles fit together to form one vast, intricate, and stunning mosaic, a picture of our shared humanity. Literature is the ultimate proof that our differences are not just things to be tolerated, they are a source of immense beauty, wisdom, and endless fascination. It allows us to be two things at once: a citizen of our own small corner of the world and a citizen of the world itself. So this is my final invitation to you in our series. Step outside your literary neighborhood. Be a traveler. Pick a country, any country, and find a story that was born there. Ask your librarian or search online for novels from Argentina or poets from Pakistan. I promise you, your world will grow larger, your heart will grow fuller, and your understanding of our complex, beautiful, and shared human story will grow deeper. Thank you for joining me in this journey, my friends. I hope it has sparked a new curiosity or perhaps rekindled an old one. The world of books is a world without borders, and it is waiting for you. This is Danny from English Plus Podcast. Take care and happy reading. And remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast. I'll see you again next time.